Aloha, I'm Diane Wilson with the Hawaii Writers Guild, and welcome to Write On, a series of videos with education and inspiration for all of you writers out there. Today's special guest is Ann Floreen Niedringhaus. She began writing poetry after 20 years of marriage, raising two daughters who have disabilities, and pursuing a career as a registered nurse, social worker, nonprofit agency executive, and teacher. In addition, she has volunteered offering poetry writing workshops. Her favorite workshops were for inmates in the St. Louis County Jail. Her poems have appeared in numerous journals and anthologies, and in her chapbooks, Life Suspended and Parallel to the Horizon. Together with her writing groups, they have published two poetry anthologies of their work, one of which won the Northeastern Minnesota Book Award in Poetry. Born in Illinois, Ann has lived in many locations and is currently settled in St. Paul, Minnesota, quite a ways from Hawaii, with her husband Robert near her daughters Rachel and Beth. All Entangled is her first full-length book. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you. I feel honored to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you. And we are going to do something a little different today with Write On. And we're going to start by having our guest read to us a couple of her favorite poems. Would you please, Ann?
Thank you. Well, I thought it would be a good way to just get a taste of what my writing is like. It might affect how you feel what I say applies to you. And so I just picked two fairly short ones, and they touch on some of the topics in All Entangled. Mom's Summer Peaches. She knew how to pour them at the right pace. Slippery as goldfish, they slid into place, their shiny outsides facing outward, pressing into the jar's glass. Peaches dominated her summer, waiting for Colorado Albertas. Those from California or Washington would not do. She couldn't wait too long or the fruit was overripe, but early prices were too high. I hid my anxiety. Would she miss the perfect peaches this year? Somehow she could always time it or give up just before it was too late complaining, paying the price for what she wanted. They appeared in bowls at lunchtime and in Christmas fruit soup. Canned perfectly, they were sweet and crisp tender. She sneered at commercially canned cling peaches, called them slimy. Her summer obsession saved us from such inferior fare. And then I'll read Daughters with Disabilities. I can't write about your lurching gait, awkward, unbalanced, the miracle you rarely fall, the work it takes for you to talk, processing what to say and how to form it. I can't write about how I used to watch other families, wondering if life was as easy for them as it appeared. I can't write about the way I become invisible when I am with you, as strangers avert their eyes or stare unblinking as if we can't see them gawk. I can't write about how unexpected pain returns when friends tell of children's weddings, achievements, of grandchildren, pain as raw and briny as at the diagnosis, but momentary. I can't write about my disappointment in others and myself when we presume we know what you can and cannot do. I can't write about your vulnerable walking in the world unique, oblivious to my fears for you.
And those are both two very different poems and both very lovely. Thank you for sharing those with us. So you've been published in anthologies and you've also self-published your own collection of poems. Which did you prefer and why?
Well, it's actually, my experience has been a big mixture, and I think there are advantages to all of them. Mm-hmm. I had two anthologies with my writing group. Both of them had editors who did a lot of the choosing about, how it was set up, what the cover looked like, all that. And but then they were different because the first one, the group supplied the money. So it was kind of self-published in a way. And at this point, only used book copies of that anthology still exist or are available. The second, the editor, and this is the one that won the award, the editor upfronted the money. And she also made a lot of the decisions, but she worked with us closely. And that book is still available through, I think, Amazon. Now, with All Entangled, I used Wise Ink. I was fortunate because of self-publishing, it's expensive, and that's a disadvantage. But what I really appreciated was the near total control I had for what the book looked like, how it was set up, where, I was given all these options. And I enjoyed the process because it really was a learning process. And I won't ever look at another book the same way again, because
what goes into it. Yeah.
Yeah, when you know what goes into it, it's just sort of amazing. I look at, having picked a cover, you just really, have strong feelings about what covers you like. I don't know, I have a postcard here that I could show a picture of the cover.
That would be great. So our readers can see that. Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Yeah. And it was really, there were things about that photograph that are related to poems, and no one else would have known, how the cover really was meaningful to me. So I'd say that's one of the advantages of self-publishing.
Okay. So how did you select? Yeah, how did you select to go with that particular organization? Did you do a lot of research?
It kind of fell in my lap in a way, because there was a friend I have who had, not someone I know real well, but I found out she had self-published a book with Wise Ink, which is a group here in the Twin Cities. Mm-hmm. And she was very happy with how it had gone. And she really encouraged, and she kind of provided the entree to talking to them. Mm-hmm. And she also then later hooked me up with a marketer and a person who stores the books and is hooked for sending them from Amazon that she had. And so it was friends that really, made it so I didn't have to do a lot of research.
Okay. Well, that leads me to my next question, because if you self-publish, then you also have to self-promote, is my assumption. So how do you go about promoting the sales of your books?
Well, Wise Ink suggested that having a media presence was important, because a self-publisher also, the publisher, at least Wise Ink did, they gave me a lot about publicizing and selling. And I picked LinkedIn because of past work experiences and just having people scattered really all over the lower 48. Mm-hmm. And anyway, that was, that's how I picked them. But my primary so far, primary marketing has been, so did you want me to go on and talk about how I did that?
Yes.
What I was doing? Okay. My primary actually so far has been postcards, which is what I showed you. And what I did, and I've already got like 350 out already. And what I did with that is the front is the cover of the book, and the back is the back cover of the book's endorsements and how to order the book, and then leaving enough space for personal notes to everyone,
Um,
because, you know, you have to really, I think that way you really, it was an opportunity too. And so I have done that, So that's been a very primary way of publicizing. And then I've had made arrangements with 6 bookstores that are within about 200 miles of where we are here. And the arrangements have been either consignment, where they, you know, they sign up and then they ask you for so much, or outright buying. And each one has been a little different. That's been interesting to figure that out, different percentages of what you get, different arrangements. And there, it really has, that's been interesting. And I actually picked one of those bookstores for putting on the postcard as willing to mail, because I have friends who aren't that wild about Amazon.
uh-huh.
So yeah, so I knew that now that those bookstore arrangements are made, I've done that. I add that to the postcard too. And then I gave a limited number of books away to family, friends, especially people with whom the girls have been, Rachel and Beth, have been um, affiliated. And so, but that has turned out to be kind of a good investment, because a number of those people have ordered up to 10 books of their own.
Okay.
And so that has been, you know, something that actually has worked out fine. And it also, I think that it just has been an interesting way to kind of see what the networks that show up, that names will come up of people who have the book, and I don't know where they've come from. So I think that you know, things like giving the books away are
Mhm.
good that way. Then finally, what I'm just kind of starting with is entering contests for for already published books, and some of them allow self-published books and some of them do not.
Okay.
And so I'm starting to do that. There aren't as many during the summer, so that I'm a little limited, which is fine because I'm busy with the postcards.
Right.
And then I'm also sending, I've just started with this, sending books to some of the literary journals who have published either my chapbook or my a poem that's in the book, because it would be wonderful to get a review in a literary journal.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that works at all. I don't know.
Well, so writing and selling are two very different skill sets. Do you find it difficult to try to sell what you've written, or were you entering into this knowing you were going to need to do both?
I had a little practice with our anthologies. I tended to be more the person out of the group of 5 who did some marketing. And I think that was partly because, as a nonprofit agency executive, selling is part of your work. You know, you have to raise funds for the agencies. And so I had a little practice with that. I think that made it a little easier. But I started out pretty squeamish about who I would send a postcard to. I felt like, oh, I don't want to inconvenience people. I don't want to make them feel like I have to buy a book. And what I learned along the way was that people will do what they want to do. And so that it was worth it to just try it, because I was surprised sometimes when people from way, way back in my life would buy a book right away and other people might not. And I just thought, well, you just can't predict, especially with poetry, but I think any genre, I mean, memoir or anything else, you know, we all have our preferences. so that people might say, well, that's nice. I'm glad Ann has a book.
Uh-huh.
And I've even gotten, congratulation notes from people saying, wonderful about your book. No mention about getting it. So
I'm sure.
yeah, and I found that it doesn't bother me,
Mhm.
At first I thought it really was going to. So yeah.
No,
So
I think we need to be a little thick-skinned in this profession.
right,
So,
right.
well, and we're running out of time, but do you have any last words of wisdom for our guests and who are maybe poets or other writers out there who want to publish?
I would say nurture and use all your networks of writers and of friends. As I've said, that real acquaintances that really made things possible. And the other thing is, I would say, know your audience well. Always keep in mind who you are not only writing for, but who you're trying to sell to. I found that, like the disability community, I've had contacts through LinkedIn for people who work throughout the country with people with disabilities. Aging, I've had a couple contacts for readings related to aging places, to senior citizens housing, and poetry and writing. I've even had some international LinkedIn contacts from writers and poets. And so I think to know your audience for your writing, but also to know your audience for when you're trying to sell.
Mhm. Okay, great. Well, that's it for today. So it's a wrap. I want to thank you so very much for joining us for Write On. For those of you who are watching, if you want more information about the Hawaii Writers Guild, you can go to www.hawaiiwritersguild.com and write on. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Mhm.